Whoops. Okay, sorry about that. See, the things I remember and the things I forget. Okay, so I just wanted to say real fast, having a great summer day here with lots of sunshine. We're going to have temperatures well up into the 80s to near 90. Just note that at least I'm understanding some beach closures on the south shore of Long Island because of rip currents and waves from Hurricane Gert, which is out to the east. We're going to talk about the solar eclipse, and we're going to talk about the tropics and the long-range pattern and how wonderfully complicated it all is. Not that I expected it to be simple, but there's still just too much going on, and to take stock into any specific model run is silly. We're going to look at it, of course, and see what it does, but just bear in mind that the outcome here probably won't resemble what any of the models are showing. Maybe it'll be a piece of each one each one will be partially correct. I don't know. So I'll get this going, and hang on one second. I'll make sure all the right audio is on, so hold on. And I won't be coming back for a chat at the end. Just got way too much to do. So everybody have a great day. Closing in on the solar eclipse, folks. We are just about 5 days away here with the eclipse on Monday afternoon, Eastern time. And you can see the path of totality, just in case you haven't looked at any of these maps yet. I'm just giving you a quick review. And this is from the National Weather Service, so you can access this at weather.gov. And it's a very narrow band with respect to who gets totality. So the key is going to be cloud cover and the percentage of cloud cover. And I just to give you an idea based on the Weather Service digital forecast, as far as the Northeast is concerned, it actually might be okay with the percentage of cloud cover. Now, a cloud-free day here is very rare, but a day where we have 80% cloud-free conditions, that's pretty good. And this is what the digital forecast from the Weather Service for Monday indicating generally 20 to 25% cloud cover or less along coastal locations, especially in southeastern New England. You've got even some single digits in terms of percentage of cloud cover. A little bit higher, but not much higher as you go inland and west. It's as you head south down into South Carolina. Now, this is where it's critical for South Carolina because the path of totality basically runs right over Charleston. Cloud cover here, percentage of sky covered with clouds in the 55 to 60% range. So, you got a dice roll here, folks, if you're heading down in that direction. All it takes is one cloud. Even in the Northeast where the numbers are good, all it takes is one cloud. So if you want to check other parts of the country, you got to be careful with this sort of thing, though, because a lot of this is, model driven. So as we get closer, there's a little bit more of a chance that you'll see some of these numbers shrink in parts of the West. But make your decision carefully. And actually, if you're making it last minute to go somewhere other than the Northeast, where you're only going to see about 70 to 80% of coverage, it's going to cost you a lot of money, either to rent a car or to fly, or to rent a car, to fly, or hotels. They're getting $500-600 a night for rooms if there are any rooms left. All right, let's leave the eclipse alone. Let's go to the tropics because we've got these 3 tropical waves still in play. The lead one, where the Hurricane Center says upper level winds are forecast to become a little more conducive over the next several days. Yeah, I would agree with that. And they give it a 40% chance. The second tropical wave saying that conditions are good now, but may become less conducive as we head into the weekend. So a 40% chance of the next 5 days. And the third tropical wave, which is moving off the African coast now, giving a 40% chance of development also in the next 5 days. So, we said this yesterday, any one of these 3 waves or all 3 of them could develop, but to really go through models with regards to what's going to happen is just ridiculous. Every run is different. Every run keys on something else. We're not going to get any kind of clarity from weather models here at all with regards to the tropics. I'm going to just show you we'll go with the GFS model first in terms of the surface. And these were the overnight runs, by the way. the mid cycle run on the GFS, and I'll let it just load. This takes a while. So we have wave 1, wave 2, and then we have wave 3, which is just coming off. And as we move forward on the GFS anyway, this is now for early Friday morning, wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. And I'm thinking that at least one of these might already be a tropical depression. The one that goes into the Eastern Caribbean, you kind of loses the signature here. There's a kink in the isobar. Here's that second one. Here's the third one. And then as we move along, the one in the Caribbean just keeps going west. There's a bit of a trough here representing the second wave, and then we have the third one and probably a fourth one coming off the African coast at this point. And what the GFS does is basically loses on that run, loses the first two waves, develops the third, takes it northeast of 60 degrees west, and then it goes out to sea. Okay, that the European was different. The European last night. This is, again, these models have very little value when it comes to this sort of stuff. When you look at these with regards to the surface, really worthless. All three systems here by Friday evening. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. The European argues the systems hold together a bit better. 1 and 3 at least do. Here's the first one. Here is the third one. And actually, the European does a repeat of Hurricane Franklin with the first one here, as it takes it across the Yucatan and brings it out in the Southwest Gulf. It takes the third wave of the sequence and moves it up east of 60 degrees, just passing to the east of Bermuda and moving out to sea. And you can see there's some kind of system in the Southwest Gulf here on the European at 240 hours. And of course, just for laughs, because we always have to look at this for laughs, the Canadian, which basically spins up everything that moves. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. I mean, the Canadian is just ridiculous after a while. Considering that most of the times these systems don't develop, you think somebody would have done some sort of correction. But here, in 5 days from now, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 systems on the map. I'm not saying, it's not impossible that all 4 could develop, or 3 of them, the 3 that we see now, it's not impossible that they could develop. Of course they could. But realistically, that doesn't happen very often. So upper air conditions are going to have to be pretty favorable for all 3 to go, and particularly because they're all so close together. It has happened before. There have been instances where we've had actually, I think, 2 instances that I could recall where there were 6 tropical cyclones running around across the entire Atlantic basin. Okay, so there is room for multiple systems and more than just 2. But let's see what happens. Again, do not take too much to take the surface outputs seriously. Just going to check with, just want to look quickly at the upper air. I don't want to spend too much time on this today because there really isn't, much that's happened. We've been saying all along, you've got this jet that goes across the northern tier of the United States. You've got a ridge that stakes out in the Atlantic back to the Gulf states. And, you're going to have to see what kind of weaknesses. Are there weaknesses out there that are going to allow these systems to turn more northwestward into the weakness? Or is the ridge going to be much more of a dominant player? Certainly on the Canadian, it would suggest that the ridge is going to be a more dominant player, which would favor more westerly tracks going forward rather than turning them to the north. On the other hand, if we look at the European and the upper air and the GFS2, it's not going to, the GFS, same idea. There are weaknesses that show up in the ridge. And that may open up the door for a system to move up. Here's an example on the European. I'm sorry, on the GFS. This is out at day 6. There's a weakness that's being caused by a trough that's passing off the southeast coast of Canada, and that weakness allows, at least according to what the model says, That weakness is enough to allow for one of those waves that develops to move northward east of 60 degrees west. Certainly is possible. Here's another weakness that's way out in the Atlantic, but you can see how these weaknesses show up, and you've got the jet. You still have troughing that wants to take shape in the eastern part of the United States. And as we go forward, actually, it's a pretty impressive trough by the end of next week that the GFS and actually the European shows this as well. This would keep anything from coming up the East Coast if that was correct. The stronger ridge to the south, if this is a flatter trough, if this trough is not as far to the south, let's say the base of the trough is more up here and you've got more of a ridge, okay, so that might be give you more of a westerly track. That's what models were doing several runs ago, but now you know, it seems like there's something upstream that's going to be coming into the mix and getting involved. Look, the bottom line is that we're going to see these. We have to see if these systems develop. Here's Hurricane Gert. The eye is back. It looks pretty impressive here on the satellite loop now as it moves to the northeast. So it's probably strengthened a bit more as it's riding the edge of the wall of the Gulf Stream northeastward. And with respect to what we can look at the waves out in the Atlantic, here's the lead one. Here's the second one. Can't see the third one on this view, but you know, looks like, you know, both of them actually don't look half bad this morning. We'll see if they are both showing signs of organization as we move through the day. I think the second wave looks particularly interesting, a little less so than the first, but they both show a little bit of turning and maybe a little bit of cirrus outflow developing, so something might be going on there. And again, the Hurricane Center's view for all three systems, giving it a 40% chance of developing in the next 5 days. So we're all good to go here, folks. Have a great rest of your day. No time to chat. We will talk to you on Thursday.